From where we left off, The Wamsutter Wolf by Annie Proulx. It zips, she said. The coat does not zip. It had been late after 2 a.m. when he lurched in and found everything tipped over or missing. He had called the police, but they seemed to think he had done it himself, disposing of the stolen goods through some seedy receiver, and they changed their minds only when the mixer and the golf clubs turned up in a Casper pawn shop, and the pawn shop woman shook her head at his photograph. The one brought the stuff in was a little guy, sort of dark complected, but not a colored man. I don't know, maybe Mexican, maybe part Indian, maybe an Arab, some kind of Spanish. That made them sit up the idea of an Arab creeping around Wyoming, breaking into houses. Then the coin collection and one of the television sets were found at another pawn shop in Cheyenne, and the cops told him that there was an indication the robbers were heading for Lincoln or Denver. Probably Denver. Denver, they said, was better for burglars. Lincoln was for bank robbers. The fur coat, the rice cooker, the dishwasher, the other television set did not reappear, and he dreaded his parents' return. It was as bad as he thought it would be, shouting and accusations, his hot-voiced promises to pay them back, his father shaking his head in "I told you so" disgust. "People just don't do that here," said his mother, all memory of the icebergs and the shipboard buffets crushed by the disaster. "I knew we shouldn't have gone," and there was a flick of triumph in her voice as she glanced at her husband. But he put down his head and prepared to weather the storm. "They think maybe it was the Iraqis," he lied. He made the mistake then of faulting his father for not carrying insurance that would have covered the loss, and the paternal volcano erupted. After an hour of shouting, his father demanding how he could possibly pay them back when he didn't even have a job, he slammed out of the house. He drove around, cooling down, taking turns onto roads he knew too well, wishing for new territory. It had been a mistake to come back. Things were worse than they'd ever been. He couldn't stay. He'd find another place, get some lousy job, and send them like $50 a week or whatever. He'd move, he'd thought, to some town like Gabo, Ulm, or Myrna. Remote and difficult. A new set of bad dirt roads to explore. He would not have a telephone. They wanted distance. They would get distance. But in the end, it was Wamsutter, the town enjoying a methane gas boom that promised to equal the happy oil years of the 30s and the 70s. The only problem was that he had arranged for his last paycheck and the balance of his savings account be sent to his parents' address. His mother promised to forward them to him as soon as he had a mailing address. Wamsutter was a desperate place, a hairline away from I-80. The first street was a strip of gas stations and convenience stores. Butted against this, like the teeth of a comb, were 5 or 6 short streets crowded with hundreds of trailers and a few houses. Fading into the desert was a second cluster of trailered streets. The entire town, he saw, was a huge trailer park, pickup trucks in front of every mobile home. License plates from Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Nebraska, California, identifying the migrant gypsies of the gas and oil fields who followed the energy booms. This, he thought, was the real Wyoming, full of poor Hard-working transients, tough as nails and restless, going where the dollars grew. The single wide he looked at was 5 miles out of town in the red desert at the end of a lumpy hog rack track. It had been advertised as furnished at $40 a month. He hated it at first sight, the scarred brown exterior. Oh, good. A backup alarm is about to begin for the next 20 minutes. Oh, German, you son of a bitch. That's all right. God bless him. My brother. Okay, where was I? Oh, it had been advertised at $40 a month. He hated it at first sight. The scarred brown exterior, the clumsily painted sign over the door that read King Kong, the stained sofa in the living room with its design of sea urchins and broken nutshells, the crusty carpet, which he could see someone had tried to vacuum by the flattened paths across it. An enormous stuffed elk head took up most of the space above the sofa. He thought it would probably kill somebody if it fell. In front of the sofa was a homemade coffee table with splayed legs. On it, 2 china kittens romped beside a stamped metal ashtray with cigarette burns. "See, all set to go," said the owner's daughter. Cootie, a fat woman in grimy sweatpants, flicked the wall switch. She turned on the faucet in the miniature sink, and a yellow dribble appeared. The doll-sized gas stove produced a tiny blue flame. The wall behind the range was covered with ill-matched pieces of aluminum foil, discolored and crinkled. The bed was close beside the kitchen range, separated from it only by a food-stained wooden box. Handy, he thought, if he wanted to fry eggs without getting out of bed. The walls were trimmed red and white, and blue bands painted around the doorways and windows. At the top of the kitchen wall were painted the words, "Love God," repeated several times. Partially blocking the bathroom door was a cheap bicycle exercise machine that looked like an ironing board with pedals and mini handlebars. In the bathroom, he noticed a tiny hot water heater with a 5-gallon capacity. He'd have to be quick in the shower. On the way out, Cootie mentioned the stove again. "The other burners don't work, but you can only use one at a time anyway, right?" He wanted to say wrong, but did not. Between them lay the unspoken sentence. "What do you expect for $40 a month?" "I'll take it," he said. He would only be using it to sleep in once he found a job. That night, rolling up his sleeping bag, he heard the nearby yip and yodel of coyotes, but near morning, the 5 a.m. light, milky in the windows, he heard deeper howling, someone's dog, he supposed, and got up to start the day. He had 100 things to do in Rawlins, the nearest town with real stores. Oh, and I am unloaded. Got the green light on the dock, so we will leave it there. Put my bookmark in there, because I gotta get the hell down the road, try to beat the traffic, and get the hell done with my day. Thanks for watching or listening.